Welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we're going to go in and set up our EC2 instance. So this is a lab and you will need to log into the AWS console. Okay, so I'm back in the AWS console. I'm going to go over to EC2 and we'll be able to see my EC2 instance in here. So I'm going to grab its public IPv4 address and I'm going to go over to SSH and I'm going to log in. Okay, so here I am in my terminal window. I'm just going to quickly do an ls, and you can see that my WordPress key pair is the name of my key pair. What I need to quickly do is just change the permissions on this key pair so I can actually use it because it is brand new. So it's my WordPress key pair. And then I'm going to clear the screen and I'm going to type in SSH EC2-user and then and then paste in the public IP address and then -i and then it's my WordPress keypair.pem. And I'm going to go ahead and hit yes to connect. And there we go, I've connected into my EC2 instance. Now I'm just going to elevate my privileges to root and I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. So let's just verify that everything has installed. So we go over to our var www directory and type in ls. You'll be able to see our HTML directory in there. Just type in ls. And there we go. We've got a whole bunch of files. So we've got our healthy.html. We've got our index.php. We've got a whole bunch of WordPress files. Just going to double check that we've got our htaccess. I'm going to nano.htaccess. And there we go. I've got my htaccess file as well. It is hidden. So I'm going to just hit Control X and come out of that. So everything is set up and ready to go. The first thing we want to do is just enable Apache. So we're just going to type in service httpd and then start. That will start our httpd service and we should be able to now navigate to our index.php page. Let's go back over to the AWS console. So I'm back in the AWS console. I'm just going to make sure that my RDS instance is all up and running. So I'm going to go down to databases and click on RDS. And then I'm going to click on instances and here it is, A Cloud Guru. I'm going to click on that and I'm going to just go down and grab the endpoint. So this is what we're going to connect into to be able to access our MySQL database. And I'm just going to copy that into my clipboard. Next thing we need to do is to navigate to the IP address of our EC2 instance. So let's go over to EC2 and quickly just grab that. So here's my running instance. So I just need to go to this IP address. Okay, so I've navigated to that IP address and here we have the WordPress installation page. So it's going to ask us for the database name, our username, our password, our host, which is going to be our endpoint. So let's go ahead and hit let's go. The database name, I'm going to basically just put everything as A Cloud Guru. So I'm just going to copy that into my clipboard and just paste it in everywhere. And the database host, I'm just going to go and grab that from our RDS. It's our RDS endpoint. So just back in the console, going over to RDS, grabbing the endpoint. I know I had it in my clipboard, but then I lost it when I put in A Cloud Guru. So just grab the endpoint again and go back. So instead of it being locally installed, it's actually in our RDS group. I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. Now it's saying that it can't write the WP config file. Don't worry about that. Just copy this into your clipboard and go back over to your terminal window. So I'm back in my terminal window. I'm just going to type in nano WP and then hyphen and then config.php. I'm going to hit enter. Then I'm going to paste that into my clipboard, hit Control X, hit yes, and hit enter. And that will now create my WP config file. I'm going to go back to my browser. So I'm back in my browser and I'm going to click on the run the installation. And there we go. It has run the installation. It's created our database. So what are we going to call our site? I'm going to call our site Hello Cloud Gurus. For our username, I'm just going to type A Cloud Guru. Password is randomly generated. You might just want to save it somewhere because you will need it later and then just enter your email in there and go ahead and click install WordPress. Then hopefully you'll see this screen. It will take maybe up to 30 seconds, but it will say success. WordPress has been installed. Thank you and enjoy. So let's go ahead and log in to our WordPress instance. I'm going to go ahead and log in. And there we go. We are now in our EC2 instance, which is running WordPress. We can go over to posts. We've got a hello world post over here. I'm going to go in and quickly change that. Instead of saying hello world, I'm going to say hello cloud gurus and go ahead and hit update. Now, one thing we want to do is start adding some image files to this. So let's go over to media and we're going to go and add some new images, and go ahead and select files. I'm going to add 2 images that I've got. One is, you'll be able to see them. One's called Falcon Heavy and the other one's called starman.jpg. Go ahead and hit open. So here we go, it's added my images. This is, I was lucky enough to go see the Falcon Heavy takeoff from Cape Canaveral with my son Ethan. We were right there at the Kennedy Space Center. So the Falcon Heavy is the largest rocket ship in terms of thrust ever made, and it was carrying a Tesla, Elon Musk's Tesla. And this isn't Photoshop, this is a real photo. They sent a Tesla out towards the asteroid belt. It's actually supposed to go to Mars, but they overshot it, and it is now floating in space. So it was an amazing event. It's one of my favorite parts of my life. It was a fantastic day. I'll remember it for as long as I live. So that is now loaded up into our media directory, and we can actually go into our posts over here, and we can click in here, and we can go and add in our images. So we can go in here and just go add media. So click in here. If I click on media library, I should be able to see those images in there. So I'm just going to go in and insert into post, and I'm going to add the other one. So let's go again. So add media, and then I'm going to add in Starman. So that is now there. If I go ahead and hit update, we have now saved that. We'll be able to click on this link here, our permalink, and we should be able to see our WordPress site. So here we go. Hello, Cloud Gurus, just another WordPress site. Welcome to WordPress. This is your first post, blah, 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 blah. So there's me and my son. There's the Falcon Heavy. If I just go and copy the image address, I just paste it up in here, I'll be able to see that the image address currently is 34.239, etc., etc. Then it's -wp content -uploads, then the year, then the month, and then the name. So that is where it's been saved, and I can click on that and it will load the image. Let's go over to our terminal window. So I'm back in my terminal window, just clear the screen. If I go to ls and then go over to wp-content and type in ls again, we can go over to the uploads directory, and we'll see that it's the current year, so 2018, ls, and it's currently in July. Yesterday was the 4th of July. And just type in ls in here, and there you go. We've got the Falcon Heavy and we've got the starman.jpg. So those 2 files are sitting there inside our EC2 instance. Now what we want to do is start adding some resiliency. So we want to make it so that every time we upload files to our EC2 instance, we want those files also to be uploaded to S3. And the way we can do this manually, and we can also do this from using cron. So we can script this to run every 5 minutes. Let's start off by doing it manually. So I'll just go back to my cd var www.html directory, HTML, and I'm just going to clear the screen. So let's check that our role is working. If I type in AWS S3 LS, I should be able to see all of my S3 buckets because we applied that role to our EC2 instance. If you didn't do that, go ahead and create the role again and apply it to your EC2 instance now. And what I want to do is I want to copy that uploads directory to my S3 bucket, and I want to do it to my S3 bucket that I'm using for CloudFront. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to copy all of our media assets, so our 2 image files, up to our S3 bucket that we're using as a CloudFront distribution. So to do that, what we would do is we type in AWS S3 and then copy. We're going to do this recursively, so we'll just type in recursive, so it means it's going to copy all files. And then we're going to copy the contents of our var, www, HTML, and then it was wp-content, so content, and then /uploads. So that is the directory you want to copy. That's all your uploads for your WordPress site. And we're going to copy this across to our S3 bucket, and we want it to go to our S3 bucket that is our CloudFront distribution. So it's a Cloud Guru, and then media, and then assets, and then -rjk. Go ahead and hit enter. And that has now copied the Falcon Heavy and Starman all the way up to our S3 bucket. Next thing we want to do is just make sure that we have a copy of our WordPress site in our code bucket. That way, if this EC2 instance has been terminated or dies for whatever reason, we have a copy of our code in S3, and then we can just re-provision our EC2 instance. So let's do that. Let's type in AWS S3 and then copy. And again, we're going to do this recursively. So recursive, which just means copy all files. and then we're going to do our var www and then HTML directory, and we're going to copy that over to our S3 bucket. So S3, and then the name of our bucket for this one was A Cloud Guru WordPress, and then code, and then -rjk. Going to hit enter. Now this can take some time because you've got an awful lot of files. It's well over 1,000 files. But there we go, it has just finished copying, and just to verify it, we can type in AWS S3 and then ls, and then it was S3, and then it was A Cloud Guru WordPress code -rjk, and hit enter, and you can see it's all in there. So now if our little EC2 instance dies, we're not going to have any issues because we've got the entire copy of our code in an S3 bucket. So now that we've done that, what we want to do is we want to force WordPress to, instead of showing those image files from our little EC2 instance, remember it is a T2 micro, so if we suddenly blew up and had lots of people viewing it, it could crash the web server. What we want to do is force it to use CloudFront when displaying our EC2 images, and we do this using a thing called URL rewrites. And our URL rewrite is actually in our htaccess file. So if you type in nano.htaccess, you'll be able to see your htaccess file in here. Now to get this to work, what we want to do is we just want to go across. You can see this CloudFront URL in there. So you need to update this so that it is using your CloudFront URL. So let's just delete this out. So I'm just going to delete it out, and then I want to go ahead and get my CloudFront URL. So I'm back in the AWS console. If I go over to services and I go down to CloudFront under network content and delivery, be able to see my domain name in here. So we just need to copy that into our clipboard. Back in my terminal window, I've just pasted that in there. So that has now pasted it in, and I'm going to go ahead and hit Control X to save this. I'm going to hit yes, and then I'm going to hit enter. So I have now saved that. And now what we want to do is just sync this. So we want to type AWS S3 and then sync, and it's going to be our var www HTML directory, and we want to sync that to S3, and it's called A Cloud Guru WordPress, and then code RJK. So we're syncing our S3 bucket, or sorry, our var www HTML to S3, and that will upload our nano.htaccess, or it will change the htaccess so that it exists inside our S3 bucket. So let's go ahead and do that. And there we go, it's done the one sync, which is our htaccess. So that is now up in S3. So that is now up in S3, and that means that we don't need to change that file anymore. We've just made the change, so it will point to the correct CloudFront distribution when we use it later on other instances. Again, I'm going to clear the screen. Now, it's all well and good having our htaccess inside our var www HTML directory, but we have to actually allow Apache to do URL rewrites. And to do that, we need to go over to our etc and then httpd directory. If you type in ls, you'll see a configuration directory, so just go over to conf. And in here, we've got our httpd.conf. So this is our configuration file for Apache. So what I'm going to do is just going to type in nano httpd.conf, and going to go and scroll down. It's 362 lines of code. What you're looking for is the following. So we've got our document root in here, so our var www HTML. Then it says relax access to content within var www HTML. And if you keep scrolling down just a little bit, eventually you'll see where it mentions, here it is, allow override controls what directives may be placed in .htaccess. So right now it says allow override none. You can just go ahead and change that, and we're going to allow override to all. So this is basically allowing us to do URL rewrites. So what is a URL rewrite? Well, it's just a little bit of magic. So with our WordPress site as it is currently, whenever we view an image file, we're going to the base IP address, and then / and then it's WP content, and then / and then uploads. We don't want to do that though. We want to go to our CloudFront distribution. That's where we want to pull the image in. So our htaccess file basically rewrites the URL to point to CloudFront. And in order to do that, we need to allow Apache to do URL rewrites, which is what we're doing now. So we've hit allow, override, and then all. So if you just hit Control X and go ahead and hit save, and go ahead and hit enter for your file name. Now that change should be immediate, but just to make sure Now that change should actually happen immediately, but what I like to do just to make sure is just type in service httpd and then restart. That will restart the Apache service. You don't actually need to do this. It should happen immediately, but it's just a good habit, or maybe it's a bad habit, I don't know, to get into whenever you make a change to a configuration file, just to restart the service. So let's go back over to our browser. Okay, so I'm back in my browser. If I scroll down, we should hopefully be able to see these images. If they're not showing up for you, you do need to wait a little bit. Sometimes it does take a while for it to propagate across CloudFront. Seriously, just go make yourself a coffee and wait for 10 minutes. It will show up eventually. And if we just go ahead and hit Open Image in New Tab, let's open up, and there you go. You can see that it is using CloudFront. So we've offloaded all our images into CloudFront, and it's no longer being loaded by our little EC2 instance. So that is seriously cool. Now what we want to do is we want to go back over to the AWS console, and we're just going to quickly create basically an application load balancer. So we're going to put this behind an application load balancer. If we just scroll down to load balancing and click on load balancers, we're going to create a new load balancer. So go ahead and hit create load balancer. I'm going to create an application load balancer. I'm going to call this my WordPress and then application LB, or maybe I'll just call it ALB, make it easier. And it is going to be internet facing. I'm going to use IPv4. We're just going to do it on HTTP. I'm going to do it across all the availability zones. I'm going to go ahead and hit next. It's saying that it's not secure, so it's not using HTTPS. We could go in and add that later on, but it's just going to keep it really simple. I'm going to add this load balancer into my WebDMZ security group. We're now going to configure our routing. So we need to have a new target group. I'm just going to call it my, and then this will be, we'll call it WordPress instances, something like that, or you can do whatever it is you want. And then in here, we've got our health checks. So if you remember, we created a file in the Bootstrap script here. It says echo healthy, and we called it healthy.html. So in here, I'm just going to type healthy.html. In here, we've got our advanced health check settings. So this is what our healthy threshold is. So how many times is it going to poll before it's healthy? I want to bring this into service quite quickly, so I'm going to say 2. Actually, I'll just say 3. And then my unhealthy threshold will be 2. My interval in seconds, I'm just going to drop this down to 5 seconds to make it much quicker. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit next to register my targets. And here, sorry, it's just said health check timeout must be smaller than interval. So let's do a timeout of 2 seconds. I'm going to go hit next to register my targets, and I'm going to add this target into behind my application load balancer. I'm going to go ahead and hit next to review, and I'm going to go ahead and create this. So that has now created my application load balancer. That will obviously take a little bit of time while it goes in and passes the health checks. What I might also want to do, and this is completely optional if you registered the domain name or not, is just go over to Route 53, grab your hosted zones. So I'm a Cloud Guru is the one I created. I'm going to create a record set. It is going to be an alias record because it is a, we're going to just do imacloudguru.com. So we're going to use the zone apex, or the naked domain name as it's sometimes called. And in here, the alias target, I'm just going to click in here and I'm going to point it to my WordPress application load balancer and go ahead and hit create. Now, I'm going to just quickly check that that's working. I'm going to navigate to imacloudguru.com. I have been rushing this a little bit. It is still in the state of provisioning, so it's not quite working yet. So I'm just going to pause the video and wait for this to come up online. Okay, so that is now active. My application load balancer is ready to go. I'm just going to go over to my target groups and click on targets, and I'm going to register my targets. So just click in here and go edit. And I'm going to add this instance to my registered targets, and I'm going to go ahead and hit save. That will now start going through all the health checks, and hopefully we will be able to pass that. So if we just go back into targets, and there you go, registered targets, the status is healthy. So I should now be able to go to imacloudguru.com. So I'm just going to go to imacloudguru.com and hit enter. And there we go. It is now resolving to my application load balancer. Do give it some time for DNS to propagate. It can take 5 or 10 minutes. I kept getting timeouts, but it is now definitely working. If I go and open this up in a new tab, we'll be able to see that it's coming out of my CloudFront URL. So that is it for this lecture, guys. In the next lecture, what we're going to do is we're going to create an Amazon machine image of our WordPress instance, and then we're going to use that for auto scaling. So if you've got the time, please join me in the next lecture. Thank you.